let me just take this in. I've got to be honest, I'm not sure if this is a comedy night or a fucking saga coach trip. There's a certain demographic in this room. And thanks for that intro by John. He's a brilliant MC. Just give it up for John, your MC. Not all MCs are like that. Swansea, Wednesday night. The MC comes on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, go mad, whoop, holler, clap your hands, stamp your feet as we welcome to the stage the brilliant, the amazing, the fantastic, talented Nickel! I went on 4 fucking people there, just like, oh, 4 people. In the front room, front row, grandmother, grandson, mother. It turned out the boy was going in the army, so both ladies were absolutely distraught. The lad wasn't fazed. I said, are you worried about going to war, going on the front line? He was like, no, I'm just going as an administrator. That's brilliant. So I left those alone. The bloke behind, I said, so what's your name, mate? What's your story? He said, well, my name's Roger Moore. Oh, fantastic, comedy gold. And then he followed it up with, but I've got mental health issues, so I've got to be honest, I don't know what I'm doing here. So we just ended up with a 20-minute counselling session. Mostly for me, I've got to be honest. The following night, I was doing a gig in this little village in the Cotswolds, and I just went on. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's lovely to be here in Ashton Keynes. And straight away, this woman at the back said, excuse me, I know it's spelled Keynes, K-E-Y-N-E-S, but here in the village, we prefer to pronounce it Keynes. Is that okay? Absolutely fine by me. Does make you sound like a bit of a pretentious cunt. That's spelled C-A-N-T. I prefer to pronounce it, and I've not been asked back, I've got to be honest. I've been doing stand-up some 20 odd years, and on my best year in 2023, I went to Leicester Comedy Festival, entered a competition called the Silver Standard, which was basically a competition aimed at the over 55s, right? There was no upper age limit, so backstage, a bit like this, God's waiting room for comedians, and one act, just before he was going to go on, he was slumped in the chair, his eyes closed. We were looking at him thinking, is he asleep or dead? Somebody said, do you think we should wake him? I said, no, leave him, because if he doesn't go on, that will increase our chances. And I did my 5 minutes, and I got through the heat, and I got through to the final, and I won, basically. So I phoned my wife, and I said, you'll never guess, after 4 years of trying, I've only gone and won. She's like, oh, that's fantastic, what have you won? I said, well, I've won a trophy. Anything else? No, just a trophy. So I'm back home a couple of hours later, showing her the trophy. That's lovely, but I'll ask you again, have you won anything else? I said, no, I've told you, it's just this. But I've been on the website. Oh, shit, have you? What about the £500 cash prize there? I was gutted, because I had that lined up for something special. She said, what have I told you all through our marriage? I don't know, there's been so many fucking things it's hard to remember. She said, never lie. Right? Never lie. And she's right, you shouldn't lie. She went on a cruise last April for a week, and she phoned me on the Wednesday. You alright? Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Are you missing me? I remember what she said, never lie. So I was like, no, absolutely. She started clutching at straws. I bet the dog's missing me. He wasn't, he was loving life. He was sleeping on my bed, well, sleeping in it, to be honest. We were down the pub every night. I was feeding from the table. We went and got tattoos, well, I did. And it was the best week of our life, I've got to be honest. It was brilliant. And she's not, I mean, generally, she's not a happy woman. I'll give you an example. It was her birthday today. got a respond day. Apparently that was wrong because no woman likes grocery shopping, so she tells me. We did try January this year. We still drank, just no sex. And we celebrated Valentine's Day, and I did the romantic thing. I phoned the florist. I said I'd like to order some flowers for my wife. She said, would you like a card? I said, yes, please. She said, what do you want on the card? I said, I'll just put to Lynn, all my love, Nick. And then she said, would you like a kiss on the bottom? I went, brilliant. I could be there in 20 minutes. She went, no. And then on the bottom of the card, I said, yeah, I know. I'm a comedian, I was just making a joke. And quick as a flash, she came back with, I bet you don't get many gigs. Which I thought, it's a little bit harsh, isn't it? But we have been married 25 years this year, and we were just having a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and she said, I think the romance is going out of our relationship. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, maybe on those rare occasions when we are being intimate, it would be nice to have some music playing in the background, just to break the silence. So the first problem I had was finding a track that only lasted 35 seconds. But we were getting down to it. After Antiques Roadshow, and I'd had my fill of Fiona Bruce to get me in the mood. And I put the first track on, Angels by Robbie Williams. I thought that's there or thereabouts. I've got to be honest now, with hindsight, I think my choice of song number 2 sort of spoiled the mood, the theme for Match of the Day, but... And then she said, there's no surprises anymore. So again, I took that on board. So the other night, she was in the bathroom getting ready. I went into the bedroom, turned the lights off, lit a candle, hid under the bed, and when she came in, I just grabbed her ankles. And apparently that wasn't the surprise showing. She did surprise me just before Christmas. She said, you have remembered picking me up for my work's due tomorrow, which came as a complete shock. Because since she retired, she's been self-employed and works from home. I said, no, that's absolutely fine, I can do that. So I got to the right place at the right time. She got in the car. All I said was, have you had a nice time? And then it was, are you saying I'm drunk? Oh, don't. No, but clearly you've had one or two. And we had silence for about 5 minutes. And then I got the classic, the thing is, I don't think you love me. In fact, I don't think you've ever loved me. So, well, I do, I have. Obviously no guarantees going forward, but... So, well, if you love me, you can prove it right now. So, well, how am I going to do that? She said, you can get on top of me, in this car, and make love to me. So, well, that isn't going to happen, is it? She said, give me one good reason. I said, I'll do more better than that, I'll give you 3. She said, go on then. I said, right, number 1, it's 3:45 in the afternoon and it's still daylight. Number 2, we're still outside Wetherspoons in the middle of Gloucester. And number 3, we've got your girlfriend Chris in the back of the car. And that was the thing. She went away on that cruise with her girlfriend for 7 nights. I didn't mind a thing. I wanted 1 night away with my girlfriend to spend that £500 winnings. The shit I got from that. But I retired in 2023. So just coming up to 2 years with her 24/7. I don't know if we've got any other retired people in. I mean, looking around. Surely there is. It's been a struggle, I've got to be honest, and we've just got to a stage. We've got to what I call it the irritating stage. It's nothing too major. A breathing, and if we're out in the car and we're coming up to a junction and I want to turn right and I'll say to her, is it safe to go? And she go, yeah. And as I'm halfway across, as long as you're quick. It's been a voyage of discovery with her for the past 2 years, because I've discovered she's missed a vocation in life. She has missed a vocation in musical theatre, because I've discovered over the past 2 years She can make a fucking song and dance about absolutely everything. I've got to be honest, I wasn't really prepared for retirement. I didn't know what it was going to be like. And again, something I've discovered is it's obligatory, apparently, to spend at least 4 days out of the 7 at a garden centre. We go to one just down the road. I've got a loyalty card, right? We went there last year on my birthday, and I gave the loyalty card over. She went, "Oh, congratulations, birthday boy." So how do you know that? She went, "The details come up on the system. That's good news, isn't it?" I said, "No, not really." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Right, I'm 66 today. The average life expectancy for a male in the UK who's fit and healthy is 81. So at best, I've got 15 years. So you tell me what's good about it." And then she said, "Well, now you qualify for one of our senior citizens discount cards." And I'm thinking, just fucking shoot me now. So have I got to pay for it? She said, no, they're free. So she gave me the card and I took it. I said, what's the benefit of this? She said, "Well, one of the main benefits is you get 40% off a roast lunch." So I'm walking back looking at this card, and she was right. You do get 40% off a roast lunch. Served every Monday between the hours of 9:15 and 10:45 a.m. And I thought, who the fuck eats a roast lunch every Monday between 9:15 and 10:45? Well, since last August. We had a little chat at the start of this year. She said, "I'm getting a little bit worried about you," because obviously we're both getting older and we don't know how long we've got, and we need to look after ourselves, and you have to put on some weight, and I really think you should lose some weight. And she's got a point, and I knew she was worried about it because I'd overheard her say something to the girls at Blood Club. I mean, girls and Blood Club is a fucking very loose description. And what I overheard was, "Oh my God, that Nick, he's like an egg on legs, his body disgusts me." And I thought, at least have the decency to let me leave the fucking room. So I joined Slimming World. I thought, I'll give Slimming World a go. I went in, and I've got to be honest, I wasn't really sure what to expect. And I went in, and there was another lady there, and she said, "Are you new?" I went, "Yeah, I've never been before." She said, "Yeah, I'm new as well." She said, "I'm a bit nervous." I said, "Yeah, I am, to be honest." And then she looked at me, said, "Is your name Nick?" I went, "Yeah." And then she said those 6 words that no bloke ever really wants to hear. "You don't remember me, do you?" And I'm looking at her thinking, "Oh my God, have I?" And in my stupid male head, I was going through all the one-night stands I'd ever had, which obviously looking like this didn't take me fucking long. She said, "You used to work in recruitment, and I was one of your temps in the 80s. You haven't changed." In the 80s, I was 8 stone 6. I'm now just shy of 14 stone, and I'm thinking, not only do you clearly need to be here, but after this, I'm going to suggest you go to spectators. Anyway, this lady came over and she said, "Oh, hi, my name's Chris, I'm your counsellor." I thought, I don't need counselling, I just need to learn how to stop eating. She said, "So what we're going to do first is we're going to go and join those 2 queues, and you're going to be weighed." And I wasn't expecting this. And there was these 2 queues, predominantly ladies, waiting to be weighed up these scales that were manned by sticking sex, basically, wearing badges like Super Slimmer of the Year and I've lost a pound in 6 months, and they were really smug looking. So I joined this queue, and the lady in front of me, she was visibly upset. Her shoulders were going up and down, and she was sobbing. I said, "I've tried really hard this week." And again, I'm looking at her thinking, "Don't think so." So what have you done? She went, "I walked right to the top of Robinswood Hill," which is a local beauty spot. I said, "Well, that's brilliant." She said, and I came all the way back down. Well, of course she did, otherwise she wouldn't be here. I said, "Well, that's really good." She did, "But at the bottom there's a chip shop." Just completely defeated the object. But the other thing we had a discussion about at the start of the year was, she said, "I've noticed as you're getting older, you seem to be getting far more grumpier." She said, and you need to sort yourself out. And I don't mind telling you, Bromsgrove, I've got issues, alright? I have got issues. Well, let's call them by their proper name, shall we? Children. I've got 3, one of my own, 2 I've inherited, 29, 42 and 44. Hopefully one time I'll remember all their names. But they all get treated exactly the same. There's no difference. I treat them all the same with utter contempt, which is exactly the same way they treat me. Because they were around for Christmas and I was just relaying a story about something I'd seen on television about the polar ice caps melting. And I said, of course, one of the nations that's mostly going to be affected, the Eskimos. You can't say that. That is such a discriminatory word. So look, it's just, I grew up in the 60s. It's just what, I don't mean anything by it. So the trouble with you is you wouldn't understand discrimination because you've never been discriminated against. I said, right, hang on. I said, I applied for a gig last year. I said, acts wanted, particularly those of LGBT or a POC. So I phoned up, so I'm interested in the gig. They said, are you LGBT? I said, no. They said, are you a POC? I said, I've got to be honest, I wasn't sure what that meant. They said, are you a person of colour? I went, yes, I am. They said, what colour are you? I said, ginger. And they put the phone down. I suffered as a kid being ginger. Predominantly the name calling, Coppernog, Duracell, Ginger Nuts, you little ginger wanker. And I can remember saying, Dad, just leave it out. I was thinking of my dad the other day because I was watching something on YouTube and the older demographic remember this. On a Saturday we used to have World of Sport and I used to love the wrestling. It used to come on about 4 o'clock. And afterwards, me and Dad would have a pretend wrestle and I'd be about 6 or 7 and I'd try and pin his shoulders down for the count of 3. And at the last minute, he'd always just managed to pop his one shoulder up. And I think, looking back, he was trying to teach me a life lesson, and that being, no matter how hard things are, if you persevere, when you achieve it, the feeling will be fantastic. And he was right. So I can remember the day I managed to pin his shoulders down for the count of 3, apart from my wedding day, it was one of the best days of my life. To be fair, by then he was 94, in a care home, suffering with brittle bone disease. But I thought, fuck it, a win's a win. It wasn't just my father. January 1964, just gone back to school after the Christmas break. I was 5, came home, Mum was in the kitchen. I said, Mum, can I ask you a question? She said, what is it? I said, well, all the other little boys at school were talking about President's Day and Christmas Day. She went, and? I said, well, I didn't get a present, did I? She went, no. And there's a very good reason. I said, was it because I was naughty before Christmas? She said, no. She looked me straight in the eye. I was 5. She looked me straight in the eye and said, Santa don't stop for ginger kids. That's harsh, isn't it? That said, my daughter's ginger. Never spent a penny on her at Christmas. It's been fantastic. So when I got to 50, I was alright when I got to 50. I didn't mind that, because what happens at 50 is through the post, free life assurance. That's all right, I could deal with that. I've got to be honest, when I got to 60, things changed a little bit. Still get stuff through the post, Stanley stair lifts, Saga holidays, funeral plans, right? I didn't think too much about funeral plans, but my mum died in 2019, and she had a funeral plan with the court. And as a last surviving son, I had to go and sort it out. So I went in and said, oh, I'm Nick Hill, I'm Jean Hill's son, come sort a funeral out. She said, oh yeah, take a seat. Before we get started, she said, how old are you? I said, well, I'm 61 now, what's that got to do with it? Well, have you got a funeral plan? Well, no. You should, because you could go at any time. She said, do you know what it entails? I said, well, not really. She said, well, basically, if you give us $3.5 grand now, we can plan the whole thing. So you can choose if you want to be buried or cremated. You can choose it where you want the wake. You can put some money over the bar. If you want people in fancy dress, you can do that. You can order the food now. If you want entertainment, you could have a band, a magician. whatever you want, we can organise. We had a conversation for 15 minutes. By the end of it, I was looking forward to my own fucking death. But Mum did die in 2019, and she'd never seen me do stand-up, and she had dementia. And I'm sure there might be people in the room that know people that might have dementia, and you'll know it's a horrible thing. But she used to say to me, will you talk about me when I've gone, just as a way of keeping my memory alive? I said, well, she said, no, go on, because I'm sure there'll be stuff that happens, and there was stuff that happened. So if you don't know anything about dementia, there's 3 main traits that dementia sufferers have. Right? They're paranoid that people are living in their house, and then they tend to lose things because they think the people living in their house are going to steal them, so they hide them, and then they can't remember what they've done with them. And then they wander, and Mum had all 3. And she last wandered on the 20th September 2019. Luckily, she was picked up by the police. I rang them and said, she's disappeared, her neighbours don't know where she's gone. 20 minutes, they managed to get her. On the Monday, I get a phone call from this policeman to say, I'm PC Davis, I'm your mum's safeguarding officer. I need to meet you at the hospital because I need to make sure she's all right. Is that okay? I went, yeah, that's fine. So I met him at Gloucester Hospital, and we're walking up to the ward. I said, how long have you been in the police? He said, about 20 years. How long have you been on the safeguarding team? He said, about 3 months. I said, okay, word of advice, don't believe a fucking word she says. So we get up into the ward, and the atmosphere is fairly subdued, very similar to this. And Mum's in the first bed here, and there's about 4 other ladies. Still right now? Who's that? I said, this is PC Davis. All right. Have you come to arrest me? He went, no, I'm come to arrest you, Jean. No. Have you come to arrest Nicholas? No. Why would I arrest Nicholas? Wow. He's only just come out of prison. And this policeman looked at me. I said, no, remember what I said? Don't believe a word she said. Because he murdered his own brother. Oh, no, Mum, that didn't happen, did it? Tim died in 2009. He had heart problems. Can you remember that? Well, you would say that, wouldn't you? Right, by now, the rest of the people in the ward had stopped talking. They wanted to hear what was going to come out of her mouth next. We had about a pause of a minute, and then she said, and of course he made me have sex with him before we were married. This woman across the bed, she went, that is disgusting. Didn't happen, did it? Look at her, she don't know what she's saying. I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. I grabbed the pill, I said, look, I'm sorry, I've got to go. No, I understand that. And we got to the door, and we're just about to go through it. And I don't know to this day whether she knew what she was saying or not. But under her breath, but just loud enough for everybody to hear, she just went, it's that poor dog I feel sorry for. We got outside, and I said to this policeman, I said, look, I'm sorry you had to experience that. He said, no, that's, I can see she's in quite a bad way. But I do need to ask you a question. I said, well, I haven't been in prison. He said, no. I said, I didn't murder my brother. He said, no, I'll get them. Have you got a dog? To which the answer had to be yes. And then he just looked at me and said, I now wonder what else of that was true. And I thought, well, none of it was really, was it? Listen, I think that's probably my time near enough. You've been an absolute battle. Lovely, thank you very much. My name's Nick Bill Lights. About 10 to 15 minutes, go and get yourself a drink, go and do whatever you want to do for your time.